at work, inclusion in mainstream schools, essentially, how can we make it work? Well, first of all, I'd like to take a look at some special needs education history. Prior to 1970, children and young people who were in special education had no education. They were classed as trainable but not educable. However, in 1970, England and Scotland, and 74, England and Scotland Education Handicapped Children's Acts made education compulsory for all children. So from then on, teachers were part of the staff of special schools. In 1980, we first had the start of inclusion. 1980 and 81, Scotland and England Education Acts made education available in mainstream schools for children who were in special school and whose parents were opting or decided that they would like their child to be in mainstream school. So nowadays, in 2021, it's classed now as an entitlement. We have high expectations. The aspirations and expectations of parents and of their young children and young people is much higher than it ever was before. Their expectation or entitlement now is to have a mainstream education, to be college courses to be made available, and to have employment opportunities. So we're talking about entitlement to attend a mainstream school. Their entitlement is being there by right. Another entitlement is knowing that they belong and also being missed when they're not there. A full-time placement in a mainstream school is essential, as is a full-time placement in a mainstream classroom where they spend the majority of their day within the class. That means that the other children will miss them when they're not there. If they don't spend enough time in a mainstream classroom or school, then they're the child that just dips in, just appears now and again, and they're not missed when they're not there. So it's important that they're missed when they're not there. So what are the expectations of inclusion? Well, it's about being present, having a full-time placement in a local setting alongside non-disabled peers. We're looking at the expectations of participation, being fully participating in all aspects of the school and curriculum and having fun alongside everyone else. Achieving, it's essentially developing their self-esteem, developing their confidence and independence, and developing new skills that are both academic and social. And being accepted as being a valued member of the school and the community, being made to feel good about themselves. Oliver here has his own individual personality. He has his own interests and hobbies and skills. He enjoyed a mainstream placement and he is extremely valued in his society. He is a well-known character and I'll tell you more about him. Again, you'll see that the photographs here are by kind permission of Oliver, who is a photographer. And you can see he enjoys playing basketball and he really enjoys fishing, but his main interest is in photography. So, according to the Code of Practice, the SEN Code of Practice 2015, the section on improving outcomes, having high aspirations and expectations, it says all children and young people are entitled to an appropriate education, one that is appropriate to their needs, promotes high standards and the fulfilment of their potential. And this should enable them to achieve their best, become confident individuals living fulfilling lives and make a successful transition into adulthood, whether into employment, further or higher education or training. And you can see from the previous slide and Oliver, all of those have taken place for Oliver. And these young lads here had really successful mainstream placements. So some children will achieve GCSE or the equivalent. Stuart down here had six standard grades. one of them at the credit level, which is the highest level, and that's kind of slightly equivalent to a GCSE, which is age 16. His best one was French, and the reason for that is the experiences that he had. Each year the family go on holiday to France, and while they're there, Stuart insisted that he speaks French to the French people that he meets in the shops. He enjoyed going shopping and asking for the bread and cheese and things, and he insisted on speaking French whilst he was there. So again, that was the reason why his French result was so good. So again, very educable, not just trainable, but very educable. Other courses can be available to children, as done particularly from courses from entry level to level 3. And many students now go to FE colleges. What we're looking for the children, for the young people when they do go to FE colleges, is that they take part in the mainstream courses and not just the SEN courses that are provided on social skills. Chris here achieved his access levels. In Scotland, we had certification for all, so that on the day that all education certification came out, all children in Scotland, or young people in Scotland, got their certification on the same day. So Chris was out, apparently, according to the family, he was out at the garden gate in his pyjamas, waiting for the postman, just like every other child in Scotland was doing the same thing. So again, there's Oliver, more alike than different. His potential is that he's self-employed. He runs his own business. And he's more alike other children than being different. So what are the hallmarks of an inclusive school? Well, parents, one of the things that I noticed when I was there was that parents and the child feel welcome. Parents have said to me that when they've been choosing a school or looking at to see a school that would be inclusive and willing, was the feeling they got as they came through the front door, and the welcome that they received told them that this was going to be a good placement for their child. The schools that are inclusive believe all children need to feel wanted. And they also believe that all children can think and learn. Not like they're just trainable, but they can think and learn. They value friendships equally as highly as they do academic success. And inclusive schools focus on what children can do or may be able to do, rather than focus on their challenges or difficulties. They also believe that diversity is something to welcome and learn from and develop their own skills from. They also respect and they empower young people. And from the top down, from management down to the staff, they apply their thinking on inclusion as well as to the children, so that attitude and thinking is cascaded throughout the school. And finally, they believe that equality is achieved by making adjustments and implementing different approaches. So if we look at this little picture here about equality and equity, there's a slight difference between equality. Equality means getting equality, or being equity means that you have to do things slightly differently. And according to the Equality Act of 2010, schools must make reasonable adjustments, including the provision of auxiliary aids and services for disabled children to prevent them from being put at substantial disadvantages. So it's important to make adjustments and implement different approaches. So, talking about positive attitudes to inclusion and diversity is really important. We need to have a flexible approach to using support staff. And importantly, ownership by the class teacher of the child's learning programme is essential. According to the Code of Practice, again, teachers are responsible and accountable for the progress and development of the pupils in their class, including where pupils access support from teaching assistants or specialist staff. I previously have had a couple of experiences where I've asked a class teacher where is the child in a particular area of the curriculum, and I've been directed to ask their teaching assistant because she knows it all. In actual fact, the class teacher is the person who should know it equally as much as the teaching assistant. And I mentioned before the good communication with parents is absolutely essential. And over and above that, support and training from an LEA is essential. LEAs should provide training for staff in schools on all areas of disability, from autistic ASD, autistic spectrum disability, to Down syndrome, to any particular disability. It's important that schools are trained in how to approach and how to teach children with different disabilities. And we also have to think about valuing friendship equally as highly as academic success. Coming to a mainstream school is not just about learning the 3 R's. It's about friendship and social interaction. So what are the positive attitudes? Well, first of all, top of the list, willingness to make it work. The willingness to make it work will make it work. And the willingness to request help or support. I know when a school refuses help or support that they're not willing. A refusal to receive support and think that you know it all is a fallacy. I still request help and support, and I still take advice from other professionals in this field. If I'm not sure about something, I will contact Sue Buckley or any of my colleagues and ask them what did they do in this situation. I'm always willing to request or help support, and I think it's important that schools do the same. And be willing to accept a challenge for what it is. It's a challenge. Learn from it. Develop your teaching skills. Learn what you know. What you get from that challenge is that you will learn different ways of dealing with different aspects of education or different areas of the curriculum or different disabilities. Be committed. It isn't a social experiment. And use and develop your existing skills. Networking is essential. Talk to each other. Talk to other class teachers about a child you have because they've had them the previous year. Talk to other schools, liaise with other schools who have children with Down syndrome or who have had a child with Down syndrome. Liaise with the parents and liaise with the professionals. Have a professional who's coming in to visit a school. Encourage the professionals to liaise with the staff and spend time perhaps providing some training, if it's speech and language provision, or it could be motor skills. So basically, ask those professionals if they were prepared to give some inset training for the staff. Again, according to the Code of Practice, schools should collaborate with other local education providers to explore how different needs can be met most effectively. So planning is essential, and start early. If a child is coming to your school, arrange a visit from the child to the preschool placement or to the primary school or secondary school so that the child can put a face to a name and vice versa. Introduce the child to the setting and observe what they can do before intervening. And then assess need for help and identify a key worker. That key worker will be the person who would liaise with the parents, professionals, and deal with any issues that occur. Plan additional visits for the child to become comfortable with the school and the staff, and vice versa. Staff can visit the school or the environment of the school the child is in at the present, and take that information back and use it for when the child comes to their school. Ensure additional support is in place and that it's there on time. And additionally, it's helpful to have more than one LSA to avoid overdependence. What we don't want is the child to see that one person as their personal assistant. I don't need to do anything, my PA does it. We're looking at developing independence and the child learning that there's not just one person who can support me, and that having more than one LSA, and also having the fact that the class teacher is also a person that can support you. So there can be more than two people supporting them in class. And then again, it's also helpful to enlist the help and support of their peers, so that the child learns it's not just one. So their first port of call, if they're having difficulty, could be to ask a mate. And if the mate can't answer the question, then they'll ask an adult. And an adult that happens to be available at that particular time, not their just PA. So planning the liaison support, it's important that we have liaison between parents, preschool, primary school and the secondary school. And take account of the child's friends and their siblings, their playgroup peers. These are all invaluable sources of support. It helps to know who their friends are when arranging which class they're going to be in, and ensuring that friends that are coming from their previous placement, some of those friends are in the class that they're going to be in next. Share information and discuss the individual needs and personal care. And liaise again with the outside professionals and plan for their ongoing involvement. In other words, according to the need of the child. Now, planning the curriculum, they need a broad and balanced curriculum. They need to participate in all of the school subjects and activities. I've been asked, why are they taking part in science when they don't need it? It's about being present and being there and being in all the subjects and not being withdrawn. There are lessons and things to be learned in science, using every area of the curriculum as a springboard for some skills, some skill or another. In science, it could be learning the names and how to actually use equipment. Taking part in group activities, sharing equipment, sharing tasks. It doesn't matter what the subject is, it's important for the child to be taking part in all of the school subjects and activities. We want them to develop skills for a full and functional life. Learning to interact with people in all aspects of the school curriculum is helping them to live a full and functional life. We need to develop their language and communication skills. Every area of the curriculum can be a springboard for their language and communication skills. Promoting basic number and relevant mathematical concepts that are needed for everyday living is important, but that can also be incorporated into other subjects. If we're talking about number and timelines and number lines, history and timelines falls into that. Geography can fall into using number and making tables and maps, and all of these things are going to be able to allow the child to learn the skills, the mathematical skills, and then apply them in different areas. And it also helps them to generalise. So integrate the communication, speech and language and their therapy provision into curricular subjects. If they are still receiving speech and language therapy, then liaise with the professional, the speech and language therapist, on how to incorporate that into the regular subjects within the school. And again, it's important, it's important that you understand the child's learning profile. I'm not going to read this out, but basically it's what I've previously been saying, and it's written down in the Special Needs Code of Practice of 2015. It'll be there in your handout to read. So delivering it, the teaching strategies have high expectations. Prepare an individual education programme for the child that takes account of their strengths and their weaknesses. Assess each area and set short and long-term targets. And they should be achievable targets. Identify specific areas of difficulty when setting those targets. Differentiation is important, not just in resources, but also in the teaching methods. In other words, the language we use and the way we deliver it In other words, using visual backup, demonstrating, using simple language when we give instruction is important. And we'll talk about that later when I talk about the profile. A small steps approach is essential. And we use errorless learning techniques. In other words, when you introduce a new concept or a new skill, ensure that the first time that a child encounters that task or the learning, that they get it right first time. Scaffold, support it to the level where they cannot get it wrong, and then reduce the support as their skill develops. And again, back to understanding the learning profile is really essential. So there's a difference for children with Down syndrome. It isn't just a delay. There's a specific learning profile that's attributed to having Down syndrome. There are characteristic strengths and weaknesses. There are factors that will facilitate their learning, and there are factors that will inhibit learning according to their strengths, but there are also factors that are attributable to the people delivering the information, the educators and parents. We can either facilitate their learning or we can inhibit the learning. If we do not know the learning profile, then the likelihood is that we may be, to some extent, we may be inhibiting their learning. So what are their strengths? They have strong visual learning skills. They have excellent visual memories. So we work on those. So we provide visual support for all of their work. They are good readers. They learn to read, and they can learn the language from print. So having instructions in simple terms is particularly good for them. So they're good at learning to read, so involve that in their curriculum. They are good at their non-verbal communication. They can get their message across without saying a word, as you will probably know if you know the children themselves. They are good communicators despite a language delay. They learn best in familiar routines. And above all, they enjoy social interaction. In other words, again, they're good at the non-verbal communication, but they do enjoy social interaction. And some of their behaviours can essentially be about creating a situation for social interaction. Going back to the non-verbal communication, they are particularly good at reading body language and tone of voice. Sometimes your body language and tone of voice mean a lot more to them than the actual words that come out of your mouth. They can see a mug a mile away. They know exactly who will do things for them and who will make them do it themselves. So beware, don't be doing things for them. They're good at the avoidance strategies. They're good at being able to distract you from the task in hand, talk about your earrings, your clothes you're wearing, your dog, or anything at all. They're really excellent at doing that. And they can also use avoidance strategies, again, to avoid all the tasks that they don't like or don't want to do or choose not to do today. The challenges are the language and communication difficulties and auditory and visual impairment. Spoken language is difficult for children with words disappear before they have time to process them. So we have to give them information in small steps and simply given. Auditory and visual impairment occurs in some children, but not all. But a high percentage of children in the early years have difficulty with what we call glue ear or conductive deafness. That improves as they grow older, but we have to be aware of it and make sure that we are looking at the child, or the child is looking particularly at our mouths or our faces as we are speaking. That is important, and that they are close to the front of the class. Delayed motor skills for some children for not all children, but some, can affect their ability in PE. But we don't want them to avoid exercise, because exercise will improve their motor skills. So taking part in PE, taking advice from specialists in that field on the activities that will improve the gross motor skills, and working on fine motor skills again to improve their writing, cutting and doing various activities is really important. So speak again to the professionals on that and liaise with them on the activities that will promote that. The short-term auditory memory is one of the contributing factors to the language and communication difficulties. Words disappear. It's called that part of the memory that retains words spoken to them. They have a shorter auditory memory span. So lengthy sentences are particularly a waste of time. Here's an example. Draw a circle around the one that's not the same. Now, there are several areas of that, or parts of that sentence, that are incorrect and won't give the correct message. In actual fact, Stephen, who was given that instruction, circled the ones that were the same. And that's because the word that was said last was the word same. Okay, so short-term auditory memory did not pick up everything. It did pick up draw a circle, and it did pick up same. And he drew a circle around the ones that were the same. Another issue with that sentence is that the instructions, there are two, not one, and they're given in the wrong order. He was asked to draw a circle before he was told what to draw around. In actual fact, the two tasks are he had to find the one that was different, and he was given the word same. So the wording should have been, which one is different? He would have then pointed to it, and then we would have told him, draw a circle round it. Now, in both of those instances, the first instruction was 4 words, the second instruction was 5 words. The initial instruction was 11. So basically we have to adapt. This is the adaptations and adjustments that we need to make when we're teaching children with Down syndrome. It's not just about the resources, it's the way we tell it. They have a shorter concentration span, but so do I, especially when things are challenging, and you probably find that happens to you too. And what we find with children with Down syndrome is that most new tasks or new information or new skills are challenging. So basically, their concentration span is shorter. So we give things in bite size, graded in small steps. Additionally, their consolidation of facts and retention of facts, and then later recalling facts, is difficult. The consolidation takes lots of repetition, lots of practice until it's retained. And then when it's needed later, the difficulty they then may have is recalling. In other words, internal thought is linked to the language and communication difficulty. Thinking internally is a difficulty. So working out inside their head to find the relevant information that's required for this task is a difficulty. So prompting and revisiting something and doing a one-off something just before we ask them to do it by themselves can be helpful. Again, that's your adjustment. Generalization, thinking and reasoning are difficult too. Thinking and reasoning, again, as I mentioned previously, is linked to their communication difficulty. And it requires words to think. They need a larger vocabulary, and they need the language required to think and reason. So again, difficulties again. The language of the tasks is important, that they have all the language for maths and all of the tasks, that they understand and are able to use the language for those tasks. And then when they've learned the tasks, we then have to allow them to learn to generalize those tasks by then doing those, undertaking those skills and tasks in different situations for different purposes and with different materials. And again, I've got the challenges in the avoidance strategies, because they will use them. They will use anything. If something is perceived as new, something new is often perceived as difficult. And if we don't apply the errorless learning technique, we'll get more of the avoidance strategies. So basically, those can be the challenges to their education as well. So let's look at support now. What kind of support should we be having? We're looking at full participation, as I mentioned before. Unsupported, we're working towards full participation and unsupported work alongside peers for as much as possible throughout the day. That's what we're working towards. That's the aim. Supported participation in differentiated activities and tasks and cooperating with peers. We're looking for them to be able to do that too. And finally, We want to work away from and have less and gradually increasingly less individual one-to-one support, and even less withdrawn for specialised activities. Really only withdraw for activities that cannot be done in the classroom. Speech and language activities where they need to be in a quiet environment with no background noise, if they're doing things like sound production and listening for sounds, and various work on the speech and language provision, that may have to be done, and that's fine. And again, for any motor skills activity where they need to be doing activity perhaps in a larger environment with equipment, then yes, that's fine. But again, that would be on a very limited basis, on maybe once a week or once a day for a short period of time. Basically, full participation is the aim. And according to the Code of Practice, schools should use their best endeavours to make sure that the child gets the support they need, and that means that doing everything they can to meet the children and young people's special educational needs, and ensure that the children engage in the activities of the school alongside pupils who do not have SEN. So we're looking at doing more of the liaison and planning, doing more of the preparation of teaching materials, and more of the assessment and record keeping. But in order to do that, you have to do less one-to-one teaching. You need to have the time away from the child to be able to do that. So we're looking at less individual in-class support and less small group work where there's support. So we're looking at moving away from having direct support to supporting by preparing teaching materials that allow the child to work independently. We're looking for a child to become an independent learner. So let's move on to some myths now. Let's explore some myths about children with Down syndrome. Well, one of the myths is that they all have challenging behaviour. They're all alike. They all look the same. They all like music. They're always happy and lovable. And they reach a plateau in learning. Well, children with Down syndrome are not born with behaviour, but they are more vulnerable to acquiring inappropriate behaviours. And they learn all of their behaviours, good behaviours, positive and negative behaviours, through the experiences. And they will learn the benefits of a behaviour. And if they learn a benefit, a behaviour is of benefit, then it will be repeated. Now that means if a positive experience is repeated, that's good. But a negative experience can produce a negative behaviour, and that behaviour will be used to deal with a particular experience. So if a negative experience occurs, they will use a behaviour that works. One of the things that a behaviour with experiences was being treated equally was Joshua is misbehaving in class, but the school doesn't tell the parents, and he continues to escalate the behaviour to the point where, through the parental grapevine, mum gets to find out about it. So she goes back to the school, who are very inclusive and very supportive of Joshua. And she asks them why they hadn't told her about the behaviour. Oh, we didn't want to worry you. So what have you done about it? Well, we're really struggling with it. We really don't know what to do. So mum says, well, what would you do with the other? What would happen to another child if they did this? Oh, they would get detention. Well, she says, I'm giving you my permission. Joshua gets detention. If he does the behaviours of other children, he will get detention. So a couple of days later, Joshua comes out to meet his mum at the end of the school day, and he's cock-a-hoop, and he's calling it top, mum, 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 tension, tension, tension. In other words, he wanted to be like the other children, so he was copying behaviours to get the benefit of a behaviour that he thought was a benefit. He wanted detention like the other children, but beware that detention is equally as unpleasant for your child with Down syndrome as it is for the typical developing children. In other words, it's not a reward. If a behaviour is rewarding, it will be repeated. And another reason, that behaviour can also be the result of the lack of communication skills, not being able to tell you that they're having difficulty, that how they're feeling, any kind of feelings they have, not being able to express those feelings or tell you how exactly they feel. They could be frustrated with different people's attitudes and different people's rules and rules. Can confuse and frustrate. Somebody lets them do something, someone else doesn't. Can be confusion because they didn't understand the instructions, because there was no visual backup, or it was lengthy. And another thing can be that people like that school, previously with Joshua's school, they were making too many allowances. It's not a free pass. It's not a get out clause. Children with Down syndrome, we may deal with the behaviour in a slightly different way, but bottom line is that we expect age-appropriate behaviour of the children. Another myth, they all look the same. Well, no, they don't. They are more likely to look like another member of their family. And you can see by those pictures that none of these three children look at all like each other. So there's Christopher, two Christophers, and that's Ben as a little boy, Christopher you saw earlier, and Chris. You can see they're nothing like each other at all. The only thing is they've got Down syndrome, and that's about it. So they're more alike than different, really. We're all alike. A Down's child, what's that? Well, there's no such thing as a Down's child. It's a child with Down syndrome. There is no stereotype. They are people first. They have the same rights and needs as everyone else. And they vary as widely in their development as typically developing children. But that development is influenced by the quality of the care they receive, the quality of their education, the quality of the resources, and also the quality of the support that's available, and the social experiences offered to them, and positive attitudes. There's no stereotype, as I said before. Child first, many attribute a child with Down syndrome, a child who happens to have Down syndrome. Get to know the child and consider what they might be able to do. They all love music. Well, no, they don't all love music. Well, yes, they do, but so do I. People with Down syndrome have different musical tastes, just like everyone else. And this is Ben that you saw previously. This is Ben on stage doing the Laughing Policeman. He enjoys singing, dancing. He loves music. He's quite a performer. But I'll ask you the question, do you know anyone who doesn't like music? You might not like your friend's music and they might not like yours, but you do like your own type of music. So people with Down syndrome are more alike than different. Another myth. They reach a plateau in their learning. Well, no, they don't. That's false. They make steady progress in all areas of development. They will progress, though, at a slower pace than their peers. And with quality teaching and quality support, as I mentioned previously, quality intervention and resources also, they will develop knowledge and skills throughout their life. And they're always happy. Well, not really. People with Down syndrome have the same range of emotions as everyone else. They will have their good days and their bad days. And you will often, as a school or parent, know from the minute you see that little face in the morning what kind of day we're going to have. And if you were thinking about teaching something new on that day, the best thing you could do is put it on a back burner and introduce it later on another day. And just about closing the gap about their cognitive development, again, the development is at a slower pace. The green line here shows the development of a typically developing child. The red line here is the development of a child with Down syndrome. So you will see that at 5, the development of a typical child is appropriate to their age or concurrent with their age, but the child with Down syndrome, it is lower, it is less all the way up. But what you notice from that is that that line is increasing, just like the typical peers are increasing. And if this area is filling up with all the knowledge and skills that are needed, that's a bonus, that's a thumbs up. And as long as that continues to increase, then that's a bonus. Then everything's fine. The gap is irrelevant. That's the only gap that you should be thinking about. So again, having high expectations. Most children with Down syndrome now go to mainstream primary and secondary schools. And you can see the achievement here. Christopher takes part in the school football team and he's got his football medal there. He's receiving a Student of the Week certificate just like all the other children. And when he's off to secondary school, he has his certificate of enrolment just like everyone else. And the sky's the limit. Achievement we're looking at. I'm Paula Rose, she says. I'm an actress and a film star, and she is a very good actress and film star. I went to the premiere of that film a number of years ago, and I can assure you, she is an accomplished actress. This is James. He was a member of the Scottish Youth Parliament. So again, sky's the limit. And again, looking at back to Oliver, who is a professional photographer. These are his achievements. He won the Pride of Somerset Youth Award in 2011. He won the Positive Role Model for Disability in the National Diversity Awards in 2015. He has won the My Perspective Photography Award 3 times. He has published 2 beautifully published books. One is called Oliver's Birds, which you can see some of the photographs up here from Oliver's Birds. And Oliver's Britain, one of the photographs from that book. He is an excellent, beautiful photographer. Apparently his attention to the small detail is what makes his photographs so special. And additionally, he had a commission in 2017 in the USA from the Tennessee Tourist Board to capture the Smoky Mountains National Park in his own fashion. The photographs were used as part of their promotion of the area, and the link down below there is a link to the YouTube film that the Tourist Board produced whilst Oliver was there to show his work and how he went about it. It's almost an hour long, so if you put some time aside if you want to see it, it's really worth the watch. And again, the future's bright. Here's Ben again. He's preparing for independent living at home. He's encouraged to cook for the family. He has a little cafe that he's set up, and he invites people in to taste his scones and his cheese scones. So again, we're looking forward to a much more valued and important, bright life, bright future for our young people with Down syndrome. And again, a really exceptional case, a lad here. He's a 6 times Olympian gold medalist. He also has his driving licence. He comes from, I think, County Clare in Ireland. And finally, congratulations here to Heidi and James, who were married on July the 4th last year. So happily married. So again, the future is extremely bright for our people with Down syndrome. So I hope this has been helpful, and thank you for being with me for this presentation, and look forward to seeing you again on some of my other ones. Thank you again.
Hey, it's Ian here at Studio TV. Thank you so much for joining us here at Getting It Right for Me Live. Let me ask you a really quick question. Are you here because you are hoping to develop your skills and your knowledge and all your learning and understanding around supporting and caring for children and young people with special educational needs and disabilities? I assume that's what you've come here for. We hope that you're enjoying your time here with us. There's some amazing people, and we're so grateful for them coming and being part of this. And we're so grateful for you to be joining us as well. There's a couple of things I just really quickly wanted to introduce you to. First of all, don't forget that you can upgrade your ticket at any time to one of the paid tickets, which we try to keep the price as low as we possibly can, just to cover what we need to help out the speakers a little bit, and make sure this event is as good as it can be. What that means is you can access the live Q&A sessions that we're running throughout the event, and you can access all the sessions for up to a year afterwards if you buy one of those paid tickets. Check out the whole school ones. How that works is if you book a whole school ticket, and you can pay online, or you can drop us a line and we'll issue an invoice and we'll sort it all out. That's absolutely fine. But we'll then make it possible for all your staff to be able to access all the sessions here at Getting It Right for Me Live this year. So do hope that's helpful. The other thing I want to mention is, and there are lots of members joining us this week, so thank you so much to those of you who are members, but we have put together, if you're looking to go deeper and access ongoing support and help and training, either as an individual, as a parent, as a professional supporting someone with additional needs, in a school or educational setting, or from a professional point of view, we have put together here at Scudio TV with Lynn McCann and her team at Reach Out ASC a fantastic membership that starts at just £10 a month and includes a wide range of courses to help you support those in your care. There's a load of resources and tools, printable things that you can use to work with those children, support them. And there's more content being added all the time. One of my favorite parts of the membership is there is a peer group community that's built into that. So you can ask questions of Lynn and her team and your peers, built right into that membership as well. As I say, it starts at just £10 a month. Whole school memberships are there. We're offering trust-wide memberships, and local authorities have started to get in touch and offer this to their staff across a range of schools as well. We would love for you to join our community. If you've got any questions on that, drop us a line, but very much hope to see you there. And thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the event.